Alright, so I'm back into making lights of all kinds because I'm obsessed with making lights for some reason. What I got here is what I would consider a really easy, cheap, and effective work light setup or task light, whatever. Something like this that's battery powered can be pretty handy. As you can see, this is just used to be an old little DeWalt toolbox. I've tried a bunch of different types of ways to light. I mean, I've tried some XML style emitters, and here's an older one, a Cree emitter, which is basically a quad emitter of some kind, very warm light. This guy's is a triple, older Cree emitters. Tried a bunch of different setups, but I realized that these guys are pretty much my favorite and the way to go. Those come from these LED tubes, like this right here. It's a 4-foot T8 tube. But I realized that those strips, they come in segments of 4 in parallel to make maybe 90 or so. So I realized if I just cut those bad boys every 4, then I could just throw some leads on the end, scrape down the copper, throw some leads on the end, and now I can light this with, you know, 3 or so volts, 4 voltage. Likewise, I've got some other ones here. These are 4K. These came in 3 parallel series arrangements, but as you can see, I've just got 4 rows of those on here, and I also threw some of these on, so I've got 4K lighting and 5K. 5Ks are going to be more hospital whitish, bluish. 4Ks are going to be a little closer to yellowish sunlight. 5K is usually brighter. It's not always the most comfortable to look at. I've got these 6 LEDs through a switch. Then I've got these 16 through another switch. Also put a XML2 emitter down there, some random reflector. I'm basically just running this from some 18650 cells. Got band-aids on here because I ran out of tape, but I have yet to add a couple more things on here. But this is going to be a power bank light. As you can see, I've actually got room to fit 4, maybe 5 18650 cells in here. Likewise, I still have just enough room to add a USB charging mini port and then a USB output port. So this would be a power bank slash work light. And basically just the way this is, I'll also just threw a little digital voltmeter on there with a little baby switch. What I've ironed out to be the simplest way to do it, in my opinion, is we got a high. I don't want to deal with modes and all this other crap like flashlights. I just want to turn the switch on, and it goes on, off. Same thing with the flashlight, which, by the way, has a hell of a beam on it. It just happened to be the way that reflector worked out. And also these 4K lights, this is what I would serve as a low setting, I guess. So I turn the switch on. You can see they're very dim. It's because those are going straight through this 100K potentiometer, which I can use to adjust the brightness of the lights. So this essentially all the way up, that would be like a low light mode. See, it's pulling hardly anything from the battery. 3.93, cut it off. 3.94, cut these on significantly more. Same thing with the flashlight. Those are your high modes. So you take a light like these, you run it from an 18650 cell, 4.2 volts nominal, and then you just run it through a 100K potentiometer. That's easy. There you go. You go from your battery through a switch through the 100K potentiometer through the lights. Bing, bang, boom. For these, I obviously didn't want to drive them at full battery voltage. It's gonna burn. It's probably gonna burn them out. But other than that, it's just pulling too much. So you want to drive those through resistors. And honestly, I'm not saving enough. It's not so much more efficient to me if I use some type of DC driver. It's if I just throw a resistor on there. To be honest, I mean, look, works for me. These are the type of things where you want them to be robust, you want them to be simple, you want them to be able to, after you potentially drop one from the top of a ladder, not be thinking, oh crap, did that circuit get messed up? You know, use it for the day, take it home, recharge it, bing bang boom. I can tell you it's driving the light at about 1.5 amps. It's driving these at about 1 amp. But that will give more than several hours of runtime that way. Now here is another one. This is the one I made before that one. Pretty much the exact same thing. I've got my flashlight here. I've got my main lights here. And then if I want to, I've got, through another switch here, the adjustable lights. So that can come in handy. But that's essentially the low right there. It's probably not going to be used a lot. It's out of the way. It's got its own switch for work purposes. Boom. Boom. That's all you need. Got this one plugged in. There's a power bank here. Just made a way too large headlight out of. You can see I'm charging it. It's got a charging port there. It's hooked up to the internal battery bank. A 6,000 milliamp hour battery bank. It's charging. There you go. This one, you know, same deal as that, but it's a little smaller. It's got hard drive magnets on it that will stick to a wall and not come off on its own, no matter what you do. And very handy. Pretty much, this is what I would take to work with me. I do take it to work with me pretty much every day. Bang, bang, boom. Now this guy, same deal. You'll see it's the same thing, but smaller. This is the smaller version. So it's got flashlight on the front, work lights on the back, and it's got this one LED here, which is controlled with this variable resistor, which gets actually quite bright on its own, but can turn all the way down. Now this doesn't have a separate off switch. It is always going to be very dimly lit, very high resistance, pulling practically nothing, and it will not drain your battery down to the point where you pick it up a couple weeks later and it's dead now. The only difference with this is because you need to heat sink your flashlight LED, otherwise it will burn up. This right here just has a momentary switch, so this is not going to accidentally stay on. The purpose of this is if you just need to see, I need to see off in the distance to see what's going on real quick. Boom, you just hold it down. That serves the purpose. It's made where you can hold it down for quite some time. It's not going to burn out or anything, but what I'm avoiding there in that scenario is, due to the small heatsink, I'm not going to accidentally cut the switch on and leave it on and walk away, and then I come back 2 hours later and now it's overheated. So that's how I avoid that. This just a little switch here that cuts on the work lights. Now that right there is not as bright as the other ones, but that's a lot of times that's really all you need. Then we have the different styles, like just going with the long tube that you hold up. Now this is something I made a while back, just trying to utilize the whole strip. It doesn't get very bright at all, but it's usable bright, very usable in the dark. I wouldn't use this as a work light because it's not, you can't just put it in a room and expect it to just light up your whole work area satisfactorily, but it'll light up your room in a power outage just fine. So that's using a jewel thief circuit. So I basically just cut it down, and I've added, I believe, a few of these guys. So I've just actually separated those, put them back on the aluminum heatsink, put a lithium battery inside, and then I have this charging cable, which I did that so I could stick it to a magnet, basically use the cable to hang it from stuff if I wanted to. But that is actually quite bright compared to the other ones. I could actually use this as a work light. I've added a low value resistor on here just to bump it down so it's not driving it at full voltage, but it's quite bright. And we have the smallest version of that. Just got one little strip on there with the diffuser, and that is going straight through this 100K pot. You see if I turn that down and adjust the brightness. So that's basically how that's adjustable. And it's the simplest thing because it's just an 18650 battery wired to power these LEDs through the 100K pot. That's all that is. It's always worked well for me. You don't need to be super complicated about it. Why? What's the point? Boom. You got your work light. I've seen a lot of people spend lots of money on work lights. It's crazy. Like these snap-on lights and whatnot. I mean, hey, maybe you can drive over those with a car or something. I don't know. But something like this, if you've already got the LEDs, maybe some switches, a couple batteries, it's so easy. You don't have to make it look this dirty. But you can see this is about the size of the heat sink that I need to drive this XML2. Amp and a half, that's about your max. That will get warm after extended use. You don't want to drive these at battery voltage. That's all it is. I've got resistors in here that you can't see because they had some boo-boos and I covered them in band-aids. I think this is a good idea, especially these little DeWalt cases, because they happen to fit perfectly. Still need to add charging circuits right here, but that's it. Also, work light to me wouldn't actually be that difficult to waterproof it. But you know what? If I wanted to waterproof this, I would just throw this shit in a Ziploc bag, and there you go. All that is the alternative to, I had originally wanted to make a work light out of this. Basically, actually, using the DC variable driver, 2 cells in series, and it's got the fan on it, obviously. Battery voltage, hey. Switches on, and this potentiometer is, I just added that, replaced a trimmer on here, so that's how I adjust the voltage. As you can see that that fan is on, now it's off. As I turn the light up, the fan will come up. So that fan is basically just a hook to the DC output, which is in parallel with this light. So the idea is once that it's at max, this fan will be driving at max. It actually does push some air. Thing is ridiculously bright, and this looks like a piece of shit right here, but that's just how that goes. Oh snap, I forgot about that glue stick. I need that. But something like this, even if I put this in a better container and whatnot, you know what, I don't feel comfortable about dropping this from any height. So there you go. That's why I came up with these guys. Simple, durable, and handy. Throw some magnets on here, which is hard drive magnets, and there you go. Awesome. Alright, here's this big dog right here. That's the beam. Let's see if we can show that beam. Hey. Now just for comparison, here's a Convoy M1 driven at 3 amps. You can see the beam profile. It's not as tight of a beam. Just like I say, it just happened to be the reflector. It's almost hard to tell the difference going back and forth between 1.5 amps and 3 amps like I just did. This lights up a room well enough where you can look around and do anything you have to do, and that's just the beam bouncing off the ceiling. So you don't really need, you don't even need this much, but this is just a powerhouse little beam for that purpose. You don't want nothing puny on a job site. Here goes these guys. So boom, you can see it's a much more spread out light. You can see what's going on. No problem. Here goes the 4K. Let me turn those up. So here goes the 4K lights. You know, like I say, I turned it down. It's not as bright, obviously. Nowhere near as bright, but that's a low. It's hardly pulling anything from the battery. You can see whatever you need to see. No problem. Boom. You know. Alright, here's the middleman guy. Boom. It's a flashlight beam. That one's not bad either. This one is actually being driven closer to an amp. I want to say maybe, this is probably closer to an amp. Yeah.
maybe a little less. Very, very sufficient flashlight beam. You got your 5K work lights, as you can see. Serves the purpose that you want served. Likewise, you got the lights on low. It's the low lights. See, that's actually still sufficiently bright. You can turn it all the way down. Super Firefly, turn it down something like that. It's hardly draining anything from the battery. You can still see what you need to see. Now here goes the mini guy. Boom. See, that's actually more than adequate. All you need is a lot of times is just have some type of light. Likewise, this little guy, since it's always on, you're always going to be able to find it in the pitch black. Or if you wanted to, say, turn that one up. It's almost as bright. It's a nice little LED. I actually sourced that from a floodlight. Here goes big guy strip light, just so you can see. Like I said, I wouldn't use this as a work light, but you actually can navigate, walk around and see with it. Uses the Jewel Thief to create the high voltage from this 18650. Not bad. But in comparison, here's the smaller one that I would use as a work light. It's driven at voltage, so I'm not using high voltage here. It's much brighter, much brighter. So you can see this is something that would be kind of cool. Just walk around with. Then last, here goes the mini guy, the smallest one out the group. Let's turn him all the way up. You can see, likewise, he's not amazingly bright, but it gets the job done. You know, you don't need all of that. You just want a simple little work light. One of the simplest circuits you can possibly make. And then for reference, I'll crank up the big dog. I'll just turn him all the way up. Boom. You can see that's ridiculous. Just slowly crank him up. Kicks out crazy light.